So it is time to start our project. These are the smallest, the children's size, and the large, extra large adult sizes, just so you can see the difference. And here I have one, or the first one of the small to medium adult or teenager size. And this is them in comparison to each other. So let's get rid of these because we don't need them. I'm going to cast on the second one for this one, and I am going to show you exactly what I'm doing. I have my yarn and my needles. I knit these on DPNs. If you do magic loop, you do exactly the same thing, just not on 4 needles. You use only 2. That's the only difference for this project. So I'm going to cast on 60 stitches. That is roughly enough for 60 stitches. And I know that because I've cast on 60 stitches many times. What I do when I cast on for small circumference things like these wrist warmers or socks is I always hold my needles double. That makes the first row looser, so the fit is better and the cast on edge is not tight. So I'm doing a long tail cast on, and I'm going to cast on 30. Half of my stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to do that a few times a bit slower so you can see what my hands are doing. Under, loop the yarn around, come out, and then pull it tight with your thumb. Okay, so I have to count because I lost count. 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So I have half of the stitches now cast on. That is 30 stitches. I'm pushing them into roughly the middle, and then I count again to make sure I have the 30 that I need. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. Good. And now, with the exact same hand motions, just these dangling off, I will repeat the same for the other half of my stitches. Oh, split my yarn here. 30. So push them to the middle, separate them out, and then count. So now we're going to start knitting in the round. The important bit now is to make sure that the wrong side of the cast on is facing each other, you know, on your both needles. And when you turn around to start knitting, you have the right side looking at you. You can tell apart the wrong and the right side easily. On the right side, you have those little like waves going on under your needle. And on the wrong side, it looks like little pearl bumps. So that is how you can tell these apart. Now let's get started. For the first like 2 to 4 stitches, I always hold my yarn double. That means I use my working yarn and my end tail for those stitches. I like to think that that is making it tighter in the beginning, but I'm not sure. So what we first have to do is pick the first needle, the one where no yarn is coming off, and pull out one of the 2 needles. Make sure not to pull out everything. Now I have a very nice and loose set of stitches here, and I'm gonna get started. And the first few stitches are fiddly because, you know, the needles are close together. So I'm gonna do 1, 2 knit stitches, 2 purl stitches, and then I'm gonna get rid of my end tail and only use my working yarn. Now we have 30 stitches for the half. When I do 2x2 rib, I like to start my needle on knit 2 and end it on purl 2. So I either have to go not do that in this case, because, you know, if you do 16 for the first needle, there's 14 for the second one. And I'm gonna end up with 1 needle where I start with the purl stitches. The only reason why I don't like that is because if I want to knit without really paying attention, I kind of am used to starting the needle with knit 2. And that's the only reason. There's no other reason for it. So first needle is knit in knit 2, purl 2 rib pattern. I'm gonna do the first round on camera, and then we'll see each other after that little bit of ribbing is knit. Just want to show you how to get started. I also like to rearrange my needles in a way that the needle I'm working with is always the one with both ends under all the other needles. It's personal preference. You do what you want. Now, needle is pulled out and I'm ready to knit the next set of stitches. Remember to start with purl 2 on this side. Purl 2, knit 2. And now onto my last needle. The first 2 rounds on DPNs are a bit fiddly, but after that it's smooth sailing. But I think it's probably the same for Magic Loop. When you just start your project, it's a bit wobbly. Now, that is it. The first round is knit. Rearrange my needles. And when you look at it now, you can tell that the little waves from the right side of the cast on are all facing you. So what I do now is I'm going to knit 12 rounds of ribbing in total. You can mark those rounds either by using a row counter or just, you know, very old-fashioned piece of paper and a pencil and just mark it down. I knit the first round. I'm going to knit 12. And once those 12 rounds are done, we're going to continue together. So I have now finished my 12 rounds of 2x2 rib. My knitting project looks like this right now. And I am going to switch to stockinette in a round. I have my paper here. I marked my rounds. I'm now going to start the stockinette stitch bit, which is this part here, the main body of the wrist warmer. And for that, I am going to just switch to knitting every stitch. No purling anymore, just knit, knit, knit. And I will do that for 9 centimeters. And the important bit is that you measure those 9 centimeters starting here with the first round, which is here. You can see your purl bumps very clearly, and from there on you will measure 9 centimeters for the medium size. And once that is done, we will be back together. So just knit all of your stitches. Looks like this on the front, and it will look like that on the back. One row of purl bumps, or one round of purl bumps above the ribbing. And yeah, continue doing that until your mitt is 9 centimeters in the stockinette stitch. And then comes the part that is the most fun. I have knit my 9 centimeters of stockinette stitch, and I'm now ready to start the top ribbing. And the top ribbing is the ribbing that has this slit for your thumb. So what I do for the top ribbing, I start on my first needle with a purl 1, and then I do my normal 2x2 rib. So in that will then have me end with a purl 1 as well, and that is important, and I'm going to explain to you later why that is. So purl 1, and then it's knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, and purl 2, all the way around for 4 rounds. So what I do now here is I manipulate my stitches and get just one more over here. So I am ending with 2 purl stitches, just because it's, you know, it's easier. I don't have to think as much when I'm starting and ending my needles. Two by 2 rib all the way around. I'm gonna transfer this 1 stitch over here. So again, I'm ending with 2 purl stitches. I didn't do that in the beginning, and that's fine, but for the end, I kind of just want to do that because it makes the next steps easier for me. It's not necessary, it's not important. The only important part is that you start with 1 purl stitch. So we're almost around. No, it's not terribly exciting to watch me knit 2 by 2 rib, but we will do this together. Now, I am now going to end again with purl 1, which is important because I started with 1 purl stitch. So if you look at the whole round, you have 2 by 2 again in the end. I am going to knit 3 more rounds in 2 by 2 rib, and then we will work the slit. The 4 rounds of the top ribbing have been knit, so now it's time to start the slit. And now you will understand why we start and stop with a purl 1, because now we're going to turn our work around and knit on the inside. That will be the first row of knitting. The first stitch, I will just slip knitwise, which means you insert your needle as if to knit and then just slip it off. And then I purl 2, knit 2, all the way around over all 4 needles. So your knitting now looks like this. You're knitting on the inside, basically. Will get easier once you have more rows done, but that's the only bit that's a bit more involved with this pattern. I'm going to knit the first row and then do another turn so you can actually see what I'm talking about at the other end. Just continue with your 2 by 2 rib, knitting all the stitches as they appear, which means if you see a knit stitch, you're going to do a knit stitch as well. And 1 more needle. The important part is always to knit all the stitches all the way to the end and only slip the first stitch of the row. So this last one here is a knit. I'm knitting that, and then it's time to turn my work around. And I am starting to form that little slit for the thumb. So the first stitch now will be slipped purlwise. Your pattern will tell you, but also you can see when you look at it, it is a purl stitch. So you're going to slip it purlwise with the yarn in front. Just take it off and then start your way back to the other end. I'm going to knit just the first needle here so you can see what I'm doing, and then I'm going to show you. So I'm starting to knit upward here, forming these rows that you can see here. This is what we're doing now. This is 16 rows in total. And once they are done, I'm going to show you the last little bit. I have finished knitting the 16 rounds for the thumb opening, and I have reached what I would like to call the woolly demogorgon state, because it kind of looks like a demogorgon, you know, and I'm a nerd. So yeah, it is time now to close it up and bring it all together again. You have two options to do that. You can either just keep on knitting. So I ended with a right side row and I've left one stitch unknit. And I'm going to put that on the needle again, my separate needle, so you can see what your knitting should look like right now. So you have one stitch left. You can either just purl this stitch and purl the next stitch from the first needle, and then it's closed up again and you can start knitting in the round. Or what I really like doing, I like to crisscross those two stitches over. So this is on my needle left on my needle. I'm gonna just put that needle behind my knitting, let it dangling there, and then first purl this stitch here. And then a bit fiddly, purl the last stitch that's dangling. That will crisscross those crisscross the two stitches over. It's like a tiny cable, but I feel like it will tighten this bit up a bit and make for a smoother end to the opening for the thumb. And then I just continue knitting with my knit 2 purl 2 for 6 rounds, and then we're going to bind off. I'm going to finish this first needle, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. So here it is. We have that long slit for the thumb. It is knit together again, and in the back you can see your 2 stitches. This is very elongated because this was a edge stitch, but because we crisscrossed them over, we cabled them together, it is not as loose in the front. And also, once we bind off, our end will hang off of this needle here. So you can always come down when you weave in the end and tighten this up a little bit. So I am going to knit my 6 rounds, and then it's time to cast off. It is time to bind off the wrist warmer, and then we're done. If you are someone who is binding off very tightly when you do like a normal bind off, I would suggest you do a stretchy bind off, like Chinny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, for example. But if you, like me, can bind off loosely in the normal way, that is enough. So what I do for binding off is I knit 2 stitches, and then I pick up the one I knit first and pull it over the one I knit last. Now I have 1 stitch left. Purl 1 and slip that one over. And we're going to do that all the way around. Make sure to keep it nice and loose. And you don't need to do a special bind off. But if you do this very tight, I used to do that super tight, you need to find a stretchy bind off that you like best. There's several ways to do that. When I bind off on DPNs, I get rid of the one DPN before pulling that one over, so I have 2 stitches left on one of them. Just feels a bit more stable to me. I'm gonna bind off half the stitches so you can see how stretchy my bind off is. That is what you are shooting for, because you don't want it to be tight around your hand. Okay, I'm gonna just put that one here so it's out of the way. So this is a stretchy bind off. It's stretchy enough for what we're doing here. So I'm gonna bind off the rest, and then I'm gonna put them on and show you. All that's left to do now is weaving in the ends, and the wrist warmers are done. I'm gonna put them on. I'm gonna take off my watch to make it a bit easier. You have the option with these to put them on like that, which is the intended use. You know, that's why we did all of the thumb hole thing. And I deliberately made these without a thumb gusset, because you can also just pull them down and have them be longer on your arm, and this little hole does not really make it cold. You know, you still have nice long arm warmers to keep you nice and warm, and you can also have them secure on your thumb. So you have several options with these, and I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you give it a go and tag me so I can see them. Bye.